Good morning and welcome back to the One Celtic Fans View this morning. Have Celtic already made contact with the next potential Celtic manager? That is the question this morning. Because if you think about it, let's put it into perspective. If you're looking at the next manager and you want him to evaluate the squad before he gets here, surely you would be asking the manager a certain amount of questions. You would be questioning him on players end of a contract, players that may be on loan at Celtic at the moment, whether he wants to keep them, Julian Arocco, etc. It makes you wonder if Celtic have been having talks with a certain manager in Scotland. I think that if Celtic have got any ambitions of improving, that maybe the way that they have run the business. We all know that they like to think that they're doing a grand job of running the business. Well, if they are doing it in the correct fashion, Celtic will have already made contact behind the scenes through an advisory. These things always happen in football. And the question would be, obviously, one, would you like the job? If you were offered a job, and if there's a good conclusion to that conversation, you then move on to potential changes in the squad. It's going to be a massive summer for Celtic. We know all the players that are out of contract in this summer. We know players that are on loan at the club that we have an option to buy. Would a certain manager want to keep them? And it would only be right for Celtic. Now, we're going to get linked with a big. We're going to get linked with, I reckon, about another 5 or 6 managers. Some that have been linked with Celtic before, some that have come right out the blue. But are we looking at the next Celtic manager closer to home? I think it could be the case that that we're looking. We're going to get linked with, I reckon, about another 5 or 6 managers. Some that have been linked with Celtic before, some that have come right out the blue. That's okay. It's on the wind up. Anyway, who do you think will be the next Celtic manager? Let's face it, the Motherwell manager could be a frontrunner. And if Celtic were to be looking at the Motherwell manager, surely you could go by some of the conversations. He had a fraudulent slip of the tongue where he said we when he was talking about Celtic just a few weeks ago. If he is to be the next Celtic manager, surely Celtic in the background are having talks with him, and he'll be watching. I mean, he's been at Celtic. Let's. I mean, we could be just piecing parts of a jigsaw together that are missing the main part, and maybe it is who will be the next manager. But think about the way that Celtic done business before. They chased a manager for months and months and months to make sure that so he could get his backroom team. He couldn't get his backroom team together, and then Celtic had to go out and get Ange Postecoglou. There's nothing to say that the exact same scenario won't be getting played out right now at Celtic. Do you know, if Celtic were to make a move for the Motherwell manager, obviously you have to go through the correct channels. But in football terms, we all know that these things go on in the background. You know, agents have talks for the manager, and it'll be interesting to see what players are kept and which players are not kept. Anyway, another Celtic news, Daizen Maeda. He obviously captained Japan the other evening against Scotland. And as you would expect in the press conference afterwards, he was asked numerous questions about will he still be at Celtic after the summer. He refused to talk about them, which we all know that Daizen's going to leave in the summer. I don't think it's you know, the Scottish media are just trying to put pressure on Daizen to come out and say it when he's away from Celtic. But Daizen's far too experienced to fall for the trap of Scottish media types, and especially at a Scotland game that was a total bore fest. He's obviously one player that, I mean, would the next manager potentially want to keep Daizen Maeda? I think that's out of the question, isn't it? Because Daizen Maeda is one that is going to go away. So, don't know. I think that players like Daizen that will leave the club, Rio Hatate. I mean, does Jens look at him? If it is to be Jens, just for instance, I mean, whoever it will be, surely Celtic have to be talking to him and saying, look, what players, there's a lot of players out of contract here. Is there any of them you would like? Because if it isn't, the club's in an absolute worst way than what we ever thought. It has to be said. Anyway, Monday morning, a lot of players will be returning to Celtic that obviously don't have any World Cup stuff coming on. You would thought, or will they still be playing any games? I don't think that Ireland have got anything else planned this weekend, have they? Scotland have a game down in Liverpool as some kind of away game, and then Daizen Maeda down in England. This is where you know that Daizen will be going. If he doesn't go, I mean, will Daizen go to England? He was going to Wolfsburg. He was going to Germany last summer. Could be the fact that he could put on a show down in England. He didn't have the best of games, but then again, I didn't realise at the time that the Japan team had 11 changes to the team. Dyson said there was basically 11 players, there was 11 people in the squad that are never normally in. And that's what makes the Scotland defeat even worse, by the way, is that there were players that never get into the Japanese squad that were brought into that squad for the Boarfest against Scotland, and they still managed to win. Shows you how bad Scotland really are. Dyson's a spent force, time to move on. Is he? The question would be asked if Maeda stayed and started performing again. I think that we can all put the Dyson one to bed, really, isn't it? It is one that's it's a done and dusted story, really. I think that if Celtic are in talks with a manager to come to the club, it will be about who does he want to keep, who does he want to lose, and any potential players that he wants to bring. Because Celtic need to get a move on in the transfer window. You know, we need to act quickly. So that's why I think that Celtic have been having talks in the background, and especially with Jens, because it would be an easy one to, he'd be an easy guy to appoint at Celtic. You know, it's not going to cost a fantastic amount of money to take him away from Motherwell. It's no disrespect to Motherwell. And I think you could see that moving quite quick once the season is done. Nothing will happen until the season is done and dusted. Do you know, let's just reiterate that, because they won't want to be seen as, and it is a complete Celtic thing, but they want to keep Martin O'Neill to the end of the season to sort of appease fans and not upset the fan base by changing manager, where if they are working, well, we hope that they're working in the background and having these kind of talks, because if they aren't, and if they've got their head in the sand, Jesus, we're in for a hell of a summer. So it's more a hope than anything this Monday morning that, you know, we are maybe in talks with someone like Jens at Motherwell, where you can get the ball rolling a lot quicker, if you get what I'm saying. Anyway, in other Celtic news, obviously there's good news when it comes to players coming back. There's after the news yesterday that well, I did say yesterday that I had been told by a good source that don't believe everything that you read in the press. Seemingly, the Sun have ran an article this morning saying that Julian Araujo will be back sooner, which will go with what I was told last night. But I can't tell you who told me it, so because it's far too close to the story in question. Far too close. We all have family members that like to talk. That's all I'm going to say on the matter. There's not much more to talk about this morning, really, because it is a national break week. It'll be good to get Celtic players start to return. Hopefully we'll see some Celtic media stuff going out with the players that are still around. Celtic players that have been on holiday over the last 3 or 4 days will return to Celtic Park training this morning, and we'll wait and see. This guy doesn't have enough broad shoulders or the experience. Will Celtic then move for a manager that has won trophies, in countries? We just have to wait and see. I think that I'm still with the hope that Celtic will have been working away in the background with the next potential candidate. You have to have a number one choice. And if he is the number one choice, surely you're working away in the background already. Because if not, if we've got a short list and we're now on what? We're on the 30th of March. We're almost in April, for goodness sake. There's less than 2 months left of the football season. If you take in the Scottish Cup game, if you get to the final, if you don't get to the Scottish Cup final, you're done and dusted by the middle of May. Hopefully Celtic have identified, and I mean this in the most sincere terms. I hope that the board have learned from the mistakes of the past by dragging it out so long. I mean, they dragged out a certain manager for around about 6 months, and then ended up saying, no, I'm not coming because I can't get my backroom staff. And then we've got Anjan, and then everything kind of happened quite fast. They know that they need to get the players in, and especially with the World Cup this year, they need to identify players now. So they really need to be speaking to a manager behind the scenes now. But then again, it's Celtic, isn't it? Gives you no faith at all, isn't it? Joseph says that Celtic will win the league. The next manager will be Stevie Clark. If it is Stevie Clark, we're all doomed. It's good to tell you that now. We're all doomed. Doomed to boring football. Doomed to. I mean, why would you want Stevie Clark as manager? Just because he got Scotland to a couple of tournaments? The qualifying for tournaments and then, says nothing. He's never managed to get them past the knockout phase. And that's where Celtic want to go. And plus, can and will he stay here? Will he? The next manager has to be somebody that's looking at Celtic, hopefully, as a 3 to 4 year project. Whoever gets a massive gamble with the way the team are at present. No communication from the board. There was no communication from the board. Clark is like Strachan, I think. That's an interesting comment, mate. Nah, I'm going to say no because Strachan had Strachan could make players better. I don't think that Stevie Clark has made a lot of players better. Well, he's not an international manager. Doesn't really have the time to make players better. He can. I mean, anyone. Are we really saying that the manager that's picked Tony Ralston for the last 4 years is the number one position for the Celtic job? Because if he comes to Celtic and he retains Tony Ralston and he makes Tony Ralston, come on. Don't know. It's Hearts will panic at the finish line. Celtic will pass them. Come on, Hoops. Jesus God, I hope so. Trying to go toe to toe in Europe isn't working. I don't think. When you look at some managers, everyone will look at the Bodo Glimt manager and look what he's achieved in Europe. Everyone will look at Robbie Keane and look what he's achieved in Europe. And these are clubs with budgets similar sizes to Celtic, similar turnover. It shows you what can be done when you have the right manager in place. It's not about going toe to toe in Europe. It's about overperforming and being able to manage games. The thing that Celtic have had wrong with them is a manager that hasn't adapted quick enough in Europe. And changed tactically. I mean, Brendan Rodgers is meant to be a great tactical manager, but in Europe with Celtic, he was, well, the history book short. We're looking like Basel 20 years ago, but yeah, that's true. I still have my heart on Marco Rose. Ooh. Let the Bundesliga manager pick them. This is true. If they haven't identified a manager by now and made contact, we are F. There needs to be a strong character, but the board will probably go with the yes man. Is the Motherwell manager a yes man? I don't think so. I think that we can only put together what we've seen so far. He's been asked about the Celtic job. He accidentally said "we" when he was speaking about Celtic. He's been pictured at Celtic Park with John Collins, who has the same agent as him. I mean, it could be a total blindsided one, but you never know. 5-3-2 with Stevie Clark. No thanks. Rosenborg, 30 years ago. It's not the first time that we've been shown how to do this. Yes, it's not. There's been many clubs that have shown. Midtjylland, Malmo. You can go back to Ronnie Dyler's time and Malmo away. When you look at that game, and you look at that stadium, there's lots of clubs around Europe that have had decent runs and that have got the better of Celtic in Europe that have basically smaller budgets. What about Javier as the next manager? We can only hope and dream. McTominay said Clark has made him a better player when he wasn't being used at Man United. I think the Moyes one's sailed. I think if we were going to get Moyes, that would have been a few years ago. It all comes down to the board. The board's previous. Will they get a decent power to spend and not just in one window? I think that the incoming manager will get the best part of 30 million to spend in the summer. A minimum. We'll wait and see. Clark gets no credit for sticking with McTominay when he was in Man United reserves. Yeah. It's a hard one with the McTominay one, isn't it? I mean, he's definitely a player that's thrived in Italy, as quite a few of the Scotland players have, and potential Celtic targets that have decided, nope, we're going to go to Italy instead. But anyway, Javier as manager, yeah, that would be a good one, but we can all live and dream. Anyway, Yang, he could be one that the Celtic manager is looking at. I mean, when you look at the squad, I just hope that Aaron talks. And we've got to give the last shout out to Lisa Forrest this morning. Lisa Forrest done one over Rangers at the weekend, and it's all good news for the Forrest family. Will James Forrest be kept at Celtic after the end of this season? I'm a Celtic fan from Scotland, but I live in Australia. I can hardly go to sleep. This is going to be Celtic's greatest league win. I could feel it. God, here's hoping. Hoopsaholic says he'll get 30 to spend once we've taken in 40 million in transfers, and then the board will blame the fans for boycotting merch and pies. Well, I hope that all gets sorted out before, because I wouldn't like to go into next season with all this, the Celtic fans collective and stuff going on. I hope that we can sort something out, because if we do go into next season, the manager that comes in is up against it. From we're basically we're tying the next manager's hand behind his back before he even plays his first game of football. So I just hope that the club and the fan base can sort something out, so that even if we're both just singing from the same song sheet. That would be nice, wouldn't it? Going to the next season. Yeah, because if not, the toxicity will just continue, the negativity will continue, and the next manager will get it in the neck. And if that does happen, who's to blame? Will be the board. But anyway, right, Guardiola, that's a dream. Carry on. That is me done and dusted for this morning. I'll catch you all back at 8 p.m. Celtic Park time tonight, where we could look forward to a weird Scottish game in Liverpool, where we could talk about certain players that may be playing that game, and we might have some interesting updates. Anyway, on that note, have a fantastic day, Celtic fans, wherever you are, all around the world.